Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our segment of Chapter a Day from the book The Art of Creative Thinking by John Adair. Our last chapter was Travel to Stimulate Your Mind, which had incredible points. And I hope our fifth chapter will keep educating and enlightening us in various aspects of life. Widen your span of relevance. To perceive things in the germ is intelligence. That was Lao Tzu. Farming in his native Berkshire in the early 18th century, the British agriculturist Jethro Tull developed a drill enabling seeds to be sown mechanically and so spaced that cultivations between the rows was possible in the growth period. Tull was an organist, and it was the principle of the organ which gave him his new idea. What he was doing, in effect, was to transfer the technical means of achieving a practical purpose from one field to another. The essential ingredients of the story are as follows. Tull was confronted with a problem by dissatisfied with the existing solution to it. Suddenly, a spark jumped between the problem and his knowledge of another technology. He found a model of analogy. Then, it was a question of applying the principle and developing the technology to the new task in hand. The less obvious the connection between the two fields, the more we're likely to call it creative thinking. Therefore, it is not surprising that inventors and other creative thinkers have knowledge in more than one field. They may even work in a unique different sphere from the one in which they make their names as discoverers or inventors. Compare the following list of inventors with the occupation of their inventors. Invention number 1, ballpoint pen. The man who did that was a sculptor. Safety razor. The guy who did that used to practice traveling in cocks. Invention number 3, Kodachrome films. The man who invented that was a musician. Automatic telephone. The man who invented that was undertaker. Parking meter. The man who invented it was a journalist. Pneumatic tires. The man who invented it was a veterinary surgeon. Long playing records. The man who invented it was a television engineer. The lack of expert or specialization or specialized knowledge in a given field is a no bar to being able to make a creative contribution. Indeed, too much knowledge may be a disadvantage. As Disraeli said, we must learn to unlearn. Sir Burns Willis, the British aeronautical engineer who helped to develop the Concorde pneumatic airliner and a swing aircraft, failed his London matriculations examination at the age of 16. I knew nothing, he said in a television interview, except how to think, how to grapple with a problem, and then go to grappling with it until you had solved it. When you are grappling with a problem, remember to widen your span of relevance. Look at the technologies available in the field other than your own, possibly in those which may appear to others may be so far removed as to be irrelevant. They may give you a clue. Experience has shown, wrote Edgar Allan Poe, and a true philosophy will always show that a vast, perhaps the larger, portion of the truth arises from the seemingly irrelevant. That is another lesson for traveling. For one seeing is worth 100 hearings. Go and look for yourself. You may discover technologies that are ripe for transfer. As individuals, the Japanese are not highly related as creative thinkers, but in groups they are much more creative. The secret of the Japanese economic miracle is that they travel in the world in search of the latest technologies, which they could transfer to Japan, there to be endlessly adapted and improvised or improved. Quality circles, for examples, was a system for getting work people to think creatively about their products or services, which made its first appearance in America after the Second World War. The Japanese transferred that system and developed it with outstanding success with their own industry. Some 11 million Japanese workers now belong to the quality circle. Our key point number 1. The transfer of technology from one field to another, usually with some degree of alternation and adaptation, is one way in which you can make a creative contribution. Key point number 2. You may not be familiar with a body of knowledge or technical capability unknown to others in your field because you have worked in more than one industry. Or it may come about as a result of your travel to other countries. Key point number 3, which is the last point. People with a narrow span of relevance are thinking within tramlines and boundaries of their own industry. Leap over the wall, develop a wide span of relevance, for there are connection between every other industry in the world and your one. If only you could see them. And that is the last point of chapter number 5. I'll see you in chapter number 6. The says practice serendipity. And remember, we said serendipity is a happy word. See you then. Cheers.